Welcome back. It's March 2026, and right now, South Africa is in the middle of a massive, multi-billion rand financial frenzy again. When the new tax year rolled over on March 1st, it triggered a frantic wave of activity. At exactly 1 minute past midnight, the very first withdrawal claim was submitted digitally. Within just the first week, a single major fund administrator, Alex Forbes, was hit with over 140,000 withdrawal requests. 18 months ago, the two-pot retirement system was sold to the public as an emergency safety valve. Today, we have the data. Are South Africans using this to save themselves from drowning in debt, or are we engineering a slow-motion national financial crisis? To understand exactly what's happening, we need to look at the massive administrative bottleneck currently frustrating thousands of claimants, the undeniable banking and fiscal windfalls, and the hard data on where this money is actually going. But first, we need to talk about the silent wealth killer that most people are completely ignoring, the mathematical reality of opportunity cost. Let's make this real. I want to introduce you to two characters, Tumelo and Vusi. Both Tumelo and Vusi have been disciplined savers. Let's say they each have a total retirement portfolio valued at 3 million rand. Under the new rules, a portion of that is locked away, but they each have an accessible savings pot of 200,000 rand. March 2026 rolls around. Vusi has had a tough year. The cost of living is high, his credit card is maxed out, and honestly, he really wants to do some renovations on his house. He looks at his savings pot and thinks, it's my money, I need it now, and it's only a small fraction of my total retirement. So Vusi hits the withdraw button and drains his 200,000 rand savings pot. Tumelo is feeling the exact same financial pressure. He also has debts and expenses. But Tumelo decides to tighten his belt. He decides to leave the 200,000 rand alone and preserve his capital. What happens next is the brutal reality of the two-pot system. When Vusi withdrew his money, he didn't just lose his 200,000 rand. He lost the compound growth on that capital, the tax-free investment income from interest and dividends, and the protection of that capital from creditors. Let's fast forward 30 years to when Tumelo and Vusi are 65 and ready to retire. Assuming a standard moderate investment return, Tumelo's fully preserved portfolio will have compounded to an impressive 37.2 million rand. And Vusi? His portfolio will be worth 35.2 million rand. By taking out 200,000 rand today, Vusi permanently destroyed over 2 million rand of his own future wealth. That is the opportunity cost of early liquidity. Taking money from your savings pot component before retirement is literally taking money from your future self. And here is something else to consider. Vusi didn't even get 200,000 rand in his bank account. Because contributions are tax-free when they go in, the government taxes withdrawals at your highest marginal personal income tax rate. So Vusi sacrificed the pre-tax compounding power of the stock market, but only received a heavily taxed, much smaller net amount in his pocket. With that said, however, we can't be entirely unsympathetic. Economic models specific to the South African labor market show that when unemployment is persistently high and career stability is low, prioritizing short-term cash survival over long-term retirement planning isn't just a failure of financial literacy. For many, it is a mathematically rational response to extreme economic uncertainty. This desperate need for cash explains the chaos we are seeing right now. Because you can only make one withdrawal per tax year, March 1st has become a national payday for many. But claimants are furious because payouts are taking 4 to 6 weeks. Why? Because the system is legally required to interface with the South African Revenue Service, or SARS, first. Before a fund can pay you, they need a tax directive. If you have any outstanding tax debt, then unfortunately for you, SARS legally intercepts your payout and automatically garnishes what you owe through an IT 88L stop order. In the first year alone, SARS recovered 1 billion rand in outstanding tax debts this way. Some members have even reported receiving absolutely zero cash because their entire payout was confiscated to settle arrears. Add in data mismatches with the Department of Home Affairs, and the administrative pipeline grinds to a screeching stop. So, when the net cash finally clears into bank accounts, what are South Africans actually spending it on? The data tells two very different stories. On the positive side, credit bureaus noted a sharp decline in overdue balances for clothing accounts, cell phone contracts, and education loans right after the payouts started. People were genuinely using the heavily taxed money to extinguish expensive, toxic, unsecured debt. But, on the other hand, there's a darker side to the consumption data. Retail analysts from the Bureau of Market Research observed a notable surge in spending on fast-moving consumer goods and basic groceries, highlighting that many households are so strained they are eating their retirement equity just to survive. Even more concerning, a significant chunk of this long-term capital was blown on instantly depreciating assets. Retailers saw spikes in the sale of home entertainment electronics, microwaves, and refrigerators. Rather than saving their household balance sheets, many South Africans essentially traded their long-term financial security for a new flat-screen TV. Curiously, you might be wondering, who really benefits from all this money moving around? Well, the answer is simple: the commercial banking sector. In the first wave, roughly 32 billion rand in net cash flooded into retail bank accounts. For the banks, this was a massive, unplanned windfall. Consumers used this cash to cure their bad debts, saving banks millions in collection costs and debt write-offs. But paradoxically, consumers also used their payouts to assume more debt. There was a sharp acceleration in vehicle finance immediately following the initial payouts, as consumers used their retirement funds as cash deposits to secure entirely new car loans. The banks won twice, their bad debts were cleared, and their highly profitable vehicle finance books expanded. Notably, bank deposit and savings data showed almost no positive deviation, meaning almost none of this money was preserved in retail savings accounts. This brings us to the most dangerous metric of the entire two-pot experiment: the repeat rate. The system was designed for emergencies, but cohort analysis from the Actuarial Society of South Africa reveals that roughly 75% of withdrawal applications at the start of the new tax year came from people who had already made a withdrawal the year before. Old Mutual's data is even starker, showing nearly 80% of members who withdrew expect to do it again annually. We are not seeing a one-time financial reset. We are witnessing the birth of a permanent dependency loop. Consumers are taking out expensive payday loans, fully intending to use their annual two-pot withdrawal to pay them off. The debt cycle simply restarts the very next month. And what about the government? Is this just a massive, stealth tax grab by the state? Well, the numbers are staggering. By the end of the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year, SARS had collected 12.9 billion rand in additional tax revenue from two-pot withdrawals, smashing their original 5 billion rand estimate. For the 2025 to 2026 fiscal year, the Minister of Finance was able to revise gross tax revenue upwards by 21.3 billion rand, largely propelled by this exact dynamic. Critics argue the government is balancing its books by liquidating the private wealth of its citizens. But National Treasury argues The heavy tax burden is a deliberate architectural feature. South Africa operates on an EET pension framework. Contributions are exempt, growth is exempt, and payouts are taxed. If the government allowed tax-free early withdrawals, high net worth individuals would simply use pension funds as a massive, tax-free arbitrage loophole. The marginal tax rate is meant to be painful. It is meant to be the ultimate psychological deterrent against exactly the kind of frivolous spending we are currently seeing. Globally, we've seen how badly this can go. When Australia allowed early pension withdrawals in 2020, 90% of the cash spent after debt repayment was gone within 4 weeks, mostly on non-durable goods. In Chile and Peru, poorly designed withdrawal frameworks caused such a massive extraction of assets that it actively hurt domestic capital markets and resulted in sovereign credit downgrades. South Africa's strict 1/3 limit is supposed to protect us from a total collapse, but the industry is feeling the pain. The massive volume of complex microtransactions and the need to hold liquid cash buffers has caused the net income of South African retirement funds to plummet, dropping from 31.8 billion rand in the second quarter of 2024 to a mere 9 billion rand by Q4 2024. Eventually, those administrative costs will likely be passed down to members in the form of higher fees. The two-pot retirement system is a profound social experiment. It has undoubtedly saved thousands of South Africans from absolute financial ruin and prevented people from resigning from their jobs just to get a portion of their earned cash. But as the March 2026 data shows, the behavioral response is warping the system. By treating retirement funds as an annual ATM to buy depreciating assets and service short-term debt, millions are actively choosing to emulate Vusi instead of Tumelo. In our desperate attempt to alleviate the poverty of today, we might just be engineering the inescapable poverty of tomorrow. If you found this breakdown helpful, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Are you preserving your savings pot? Or is the pressure just too much right now? See you in the next one.